Thank you all for joining us. Discussions with the Fascia Masters. We have an incredibly special guest today, my guest, Quinn Castelane, the VP of Block Therapy and the lead block therapist. And we are here to talk not only about the fitness program that he has created, but also just about block therapy in general, and to share a little bit about our journey along the way. So this has been a 20-year journey for me. And as delighted as I am that I've been given the opportunity to bring this to the world, it has been incredibly challenging. There's been many times along the way when people have said, there's no way you're going to be able to do this. It's an uphill climb, way too many things to try to get this out there. So, it took a lot of perseverance, a lot of faith on my part. And there were many times when I never lost the faith, but I was really quite uncertain as to how this was all going to come to be. And I always hoped and prayed that Quinn would be part of this, because we had the most incredible bond growing up. I mean, I could rant forever and tell you stories about the incredible times that we spent and the connection that we had. And when he was 18 years old, when he told me that he wanted to join block therapy and be part of this, my heart just exploded. I was so incredibly excited. And there have been many people that have been supportive along the way, but truly he has been the only person that had that unwavering faith that we were going to do this no matter what. And we would spend multiple nights in my apartment dreaming, brainstorming, thinking about the future. And what is so amazing is that basically everything that we talked about and dreamed about, we've manifested. So that is so incredibly exciting for me. And to have Quinn on this journey with me has made it so potently powerful. And I really, I struggle to put into words how blessed I feel to have the person in the world that I cherish so much side by side with me, walking along this challenging road and making every moment exciting and giving me that drive, that energy to keep going forward, even in moments when I didn't think I was going to be able to. So I'm going to tear up. So I'm going to just pass it over to you. Why don't you share your version of how we got to this moment, and then we'll dive into Block for Fitness.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was, I know you can definitely get teary in this time, because it has been extremely challenging, and people only see what they see. They don't see what's going on behind the scenes. And everybody thinks that running a company that helps manage stress, that focuses on the fascia system, that there's going to be no stress. And it has been literally the opposite, because it's been so challenging to be able to bring this bodywork practice to people that will actually listen. Like, if people can listen, we would be super excited. But we've gotten turned down so many times. We've had so many negative comments. It's just been, there's been many times where we're like, wow, is this even gonna work? But we would never actually go down that road. That was only a temporary doubt. And we soon realized, once we got to a certain step, and we had to pretty well rebuild everything from when I turned 20 years old, I believe, somewhere around there. That's when we're like, okay, if we can do this, we can do anything. And that's when I pretty much had to figure out more of the tech piece. And I was not a tech person, which is hilarious. So we were able to, and I won't get into all those heavy details right now, but we were able to slowly build our way up and rebuild the business and the brand to where it is today. And Deanna and I are very big dreamers. We want this to be absolutely as big as it can possibly be. So we're happy where we are. We're somewhat satisfied, but there's just, the goals are so big that we don't ever want to stop. So there has, of course, been many issues in the business. Tech has been probably the most challenging issue with us, but it's something that we are resolving. And it's just been, from starting off in your apartment, when we would literally, like what you're talking about, we would literally just dream on your couch, okay, where is this going to go? What's the next step? We would think 20 years down the line. And literally the end goal was to save I'm going to say save humanity, but to save and help as many people that we possibly can. And now that we're in this super bizarre time, we really feel like this is our time to really step up and help people. And I've been a little bit more behind the scenes recently because we're still figuring out the last pieces of tech and whatnot before I can more so get out there a little bit more and do more so of what I'm wanting to do. I'm not necessarily wanting to be a tech person, but you got to do what you got to do when you want to get somewhere. So that's what we've both done. We've made many, many sacrifices for this company, and it's just amazing to see it all unfold. And I know it's going to get very big quick, and there's no person I would rather be than by your side. And it's just so exciting. So we realize that no matter what situation, what circumstance we are ever in, what we face, we pretty well got to a stage where we're not even really scared of anything that comes at us. The stuff that's already come at us is probably the most fearful. And there's been absolutely terrifying times where we didn't know if we were going to make it, if we need to like temporarily shut everything down, if it's not like, I won't get into all those details, but wow, we've been able to build such an incredible, powerful team, and more people are coming on. So yeah, it's been so cool. And now we're at the point where we can start adding in some new things like the fitness program. And we couldn't launch it too soon either, because we really needed to get the base foundation of block therapy, because you don't want anybody to jump into fitness if they are compressed, if they have adhesions manipulating the biomechanics of the body. We have to be able to strip the body of the adhesions, not all of them, of course, but as many as we can, so that when we're training, we're actually training in correct alignment. So that's what we'll be talking about a little bit today in the Block for Fitness. But is there anything else we should chat before we jump in?
Well, I think we should, I'll give my, because of course we both have our own perspectives on, the journey and everything, but I want to share when you first came to that class that I was teaching, and just a little bit of background there. So my perspective of this with Quinn is, Quinn was always an extremely driven athlete when he was a hockey player. It actually scared me because he was so driven and so determined that he really compressed his body in the attempts to be faster, better, those whole things. And then, of course, ankle injury led him away from hockey, and then the bodybuilding started. So you were 18 years old when you came to that very first class, and you were very big and bulky. And it was the first class, and you had just started taking business in university, and your parents were away. And it was awesome because I'm teaching at this church, the first bigger class that I taught of block therapy, and you joined. It was just down the street from your home. So you came to the class, and I went up to your house afterward, and we started chatting, and you shared with me that you wanted to be a part of this, and that you wanted to drop out of university, and you wanted me to tell your parents. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be interesting. So fortunately, they were away for a while, and we went on that journey. But I also said to you in that moment, because you were working at Popeyes and you were taking a lot of supplements, and I said, okay, if you want to do this, we need to test this from the perspective of bodybuilding. And I need you to get off all those supplements. I'm not a big believer in taking things to force size. Let's see what can happen if we just really use the power of blocking, decompressing, realigning, and oxygenating those cells, and then using that to build your foundation from, and take it from here.
Yeah, that was really interesting because obviously Deanna's my aunt, so she's been working on me before my first block therapy class, but I never really understood it or got it until you can do it yourself. And I think that's the case pretty well with everyone. And the first thing I noticed was, of course, like the breath was just different. And then my legs were so compressed from playing hockey my whole life and from bodybuilding. So my legs felt incredibly light and different. I'm like, wow, I've never felt like this before. And then the whole intention and purpose of taking supplements, and just to clarify, Popeyes isn't the chicken store, it's the supplement store. And I was just so in love with health and bodybuilding and fitness. So when you work at a supplement store, if you ever have, you realize that you get incredible discounts. You get a lot of free things given to you. So I treated my body like a chemistry experiment and I wanted to see how well this could help. So the intention of taking supplements is literally to improve performance, improve recovery. It can be, you can take vasodilators, you can take weight gainers, you can take things to help you lose weight. I never had issues losing weight. I had issues gaining weight. So I was taking almost everything in that store, not everything in that store, but pretty well every category, something to improve my performance, recovery, and for me to get bigger, more vascular. I was taking vasodilators to make me like more veiny. It was ridiculous, but that's all forceful. And that's literally full of so many, things have changed a little bit now, but back then, everything was full of like either sucralose and artificial colors and flavorings, and nothing really made me feel good. And then I remember this one time I mixed 3 different pre-workouts together. I was taking all these different BCAAs and flavorings, and I was at the gym and I was doing deadlifts. And then I remember my arms just cut out, and then I was nauseous, and then I was sick, and then my heart wouldn't stop pounding, and I was freaking out. And then I didn't know if I was going to like have to go to the hospital if I was going to have a heart attack. So that was when I came home. My mom was like, "What did you just do?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I'm freaking out." So I'm chugging back water. I'm trying to like pump all this like stuff out of my system. And then I'm like, I'm never touching those things again. I'm going to listen to Deanna. And this is where I pretty much said, done with supplements. I'm going 100% the holistic route, and I'm going to test out block therapy to see how this works. So the reason why I said the intention of taking supplements is for recovery and performance, I wanted to see if block therapy could help with recovery and performance. So I think I was training chest, and then Deanna, because I was so concaved in my chest, Deanna's like, every single day you have to do the pec positions. And I did it every single day. And I couldn't believe, I remember coming to Deanna like, I've never been able to pull my shoulders back like this before. This is insane. Like, what? And then I would be sore because I would train so intensely in the gym. I would be sore for like 4 to 6 days where I couldn't train. So I could only really train one muscle group a week because I beat down the muscles so much. It needed a lot of time to recover. So it was like the day I trained chest, I ended up blocking. The next day, it was like 90% recovered. And I was just super confused because I'm like, Deanna, how is this possible? Like, I've always believed in you and block therapy, but like, how is this possible? So I kept on experimenting, playing around with it. I'm like, my back's getting wider. Like, everything's changing. Like, I feel like I'm growing actually quicker. And then you kept on saying, man, like you're growing like more broader and you look way healthier and more open and not as collapsed with my traps coming over and everything's pulling me down. So I started feeling amazing. I started looking better. And as I mentioned, I started growing quicker. And for a bodybuilder, that's all you can really ask for. I was so pumped. And then I remember prepping for my first show. Remember, I had a little bit too much water weight and fat in my low back. So Deanna's like, do you know what? You need to block this area down here to release that, to pump out all of that like excess fluid and decompress the fat cells. So I'm like, there's no way blocking like not on that area is going to get rid of my fat there or help rid the water weight. So I worked that area and my obliques were uneven as well. I came off after however long it was. It could have been like 10 minutes or so. And you just like freaked out. And then I kept working on it. And then I'm like, wow, that evened out that quick without me even working there. Now I'm lengthening. I've been able to rid more of this interstitial fluid and decompress the fat cells. So I was just blown away. And then I'm like, okay, so this does help with weight loss too. So I remember my first intention, I'm like, I'm creating a Block for Bodybuilders program. It's going to be the best thing in the world. All I'm going to do is create a workout program and then add in block therapy for 15 minutes before and then block therapy for 15 minutes post-workout. And that's going to be the best program in the world. So I remember I typed out and wrote this like 100-page like ebook that I was all excited about. And then I'm like, wait, if you're training for an hour, hour and a half, and then blocking for 30 minutes, not many people are necessarily going to do that. But what if people are training incorrectly? Is this really going to work? So then I got to the point where I'm like, I don't even like this anymore. So I just threw it away. And then I'm like, Deanna, I need you to come to the gym with me. And that's when you came to Good Life Fitness. And it was literally within like 5-10 minutes, there was like 8 light bulbs that went off in my head. And I'm like, I know what to do. I figured it out. Okay, so we have to work in more like spirals, waves, this and that. And it was really cool because instead of always pushing in a linear motion, that's the issue of how people are training typically. They're always working out in a linear motion, and you're forcefully trying to tear the tissue so that it can rebuild to be bigger and stronger. But people don't take into consideration that micro tearing the tissue or the muscle fiber is actually technically an injury. So when you're injuring your tissue, inevitably scar tissue is going to result. So I'm like, this doesn't really make sense then, because the whole point is to not create scar tissue, but bodybuilding can create scar tissue. So then I got a little confused. I'm like, okay, well, I'll just block after that. We'll get rid of the scar tissue. And that's true, it will. But I'm like, there has to be a better way. So then we pretty well figured out a way to incorporate more spirals into working out. And I brought a lot of my clients through that, and I tested it out for myself. But after doing that for a couple of years, I realized doing that too much, because I took everything to the extreme, I was doing too much of it. And I still needed to respect the lines of the muscle fibers. So you still have to take in consideration the muscle fibers, but also the fascia, especially if you're trying to treat it as a bodybuilding program. But if you're doing it for overall health and well-being, you can absolutely work more so in spirals, as long as you're not trying to be a bodybuilder from that perspective. So, and then I guess fast forwarding, sorry, I'm just kind of jumping to it here, but fast forwarding to more of the realization last year, I'm like, okay, what it really comes down to is I have to think of the people who are currently doing block therapy, who are in the membership. And the majority of people are middle-aged women. So what a bodybuilding program literally doesn't make any sense at all. So we already knew that. So I got rid of that. This other way of training in the gym, too intense, got rid of that. So then I'm like, okay, we need to rebuild the postural foundations. That's what it really comes down to, because we need to be as strong as we can in our own alignment before we can explore into spirals, before we can pull in different unique ways of training. So that's pretty much what it came down to. So I figured out a way where, okay, if we need to strip down main exercises, how are people really going to understand how to build the foundation? Because people don't even understand proper alignment. They might say, okay, stand up tall, but you can be opening up too much. You could still be collapsed too much. Your head and your neck can be in incorrect alignment. Your shoulder blades might not be tracking correctly on the rib cage. The hips are out. What are you doing with the feet? Where are the knees in relation to the feet? But everything up and down the chain. So that's pretty much where it came down to this first phase, because it's, of course, I want to jump into bigger things sooner, but it only makes sense if we can all start at the same place. And what's so awesome about this is it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, your gender, what condition you're in. You could be a professional athlete, you could be a professional bodybuilder, you can be in chronic pain. You can still follow through this program because it's all about you respecting your limits. And all it requires is your body weight, your block, and resistance bands. And that's it. So you can do this at home. Sure, you can take this to the gym and go to the studio. Hey, if you are working out in the gym already and you just really don't want to stop working out, I do understand that. Trust me, I understand that. But if you can start incorporating this even into your warm-up, if you treat some of these workouts as your warm-up, you're going to be training in more correctly or in more correct alignment compared to if you're just going off and hitting up the bench press or the squat or the deadlift or whatever you're wanting to do. So I also have to realize there's so many different styles of training, and I've been limited mostly to bodybuilding. And it's great because you can look good, you can get strong in those movements, but over time it's going to break you down, and it can break you down really quick. So that's where I pretty well realized I can't be doing this nearly to the extent I'm doing it. But then the ego got in the way. And then I'm like, oh my God, people know my name for how I look. I'm like, that's terrible. Like, in the moment, it's amazing because you feel like a superhero. But when you're realizing that there's consequences to what I've been doing for the past, when did I start? I was probably like 14 or 15 when I started training. I'm 25 now. So we'll say 10 years. I kind of lost my train of thought there, but it was just breaking my body down. And I knew that I couldn't do this long term. So I had to start changing things. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to start losing size, but that's so hard. And then as I see my body getting smaller, my ego takes over and I go to the gym and then I work out super intense again, just to like prove myself that I'm bigger than other. It's the stupidest thing. It really is, because the ego is the biggest thing that we have to overcome if you're in a similar position that I'm in. But when you realize that people don't really actually care that much about what you look. And for me, my eyes are a lot different than what people see. I could lose 10, 15, 20 pounds and people could still think that I look very similar. But anyways, the point being is, no matter where you are, what position you're in, the best way to start is through rebuilding your postural foundations, because I guarantee that you're going to be learning definitely a few things, if not a lot of things in this program, to bring you through the step-by-step formula. And I'll explain more of the layout of this program shortly, but I'll kind of check in there to see if I'm on the right path, Dee.
Well, and you sure nailed it, eh? The ego is what we need to really tame and connect to our heart, because at the end of the day, we want to be healthy before we are fit. And I have worked with so many athletes, so many individuals over the years, and the people that are the hardest to melt through are those that are fit in whatever it is, whether they're in the gym, whether they're athletes, because they train so intensely in negative alignment. It's interesting because I had a conversation recently with a 22-year-old who was a high-level athlete, and he was saying how frustrated he was that all of his friends who do nothing don't have the pains that he has. And it's like, yeah. And this is the reality, because you're training so hard and we're not coming from that place of proper postural foundation. You continue to strengthen further out of alignment. And the denser we are, the more time we need to melt. So it is so interesting that in our world, we have confused fitness for health. And I mean, they can go hand in hand. But you can also be very fit and completely unhealthy. You can be that marathon runner that can run 26 miles and then drop dead at the age of 50 because of the increased aging effect of gravity over time with the amount of training that you're doing. You can be that tennis rock star and be so asymmetrical in your body from the game that you're so twisted that you pull yourself into a scoliosis. And I mean, Quinn, you and I have worked with a few specific individuals as well that are bodybuilders that, yeah, if you see them in a picture, you might think, yeah, this guy looks like big and buff and healthy. But then we start working on them and we see the twists and the holding patterns, and then the surgeries that end up resulting because their knee cartilage is completely worn down, or they blow something out, or whatever that may be. And to have the gift that you've put into this community of teaching proper foundation first is so powerful, because we don't want people to stop what they love, but we want people to be able to love what they do lifelong. And if you don't treat your fascia with respect, your fascia is going to have to limit you, because that's what it does. It is here to support our cells. Our cells are here to support our fascia. But if we don't give that tissue the oxygen, the space, and that foundation that it requires, gravity takes hold and it starts manipulating us. And the more we do without conscious awareness, the faster we let gravity manipulate us. And we have this powerful mechanism inside our body, this full exhalation that is the counterforce to gravity. So when we can really wrap our head around the power of the diaphragm muscle, and that this is the muscle that we really need to think of first and foremost to strengthen in our body, so that lifelong we can learn how to drive this container for our soul in the most healthful, respectful way, then we have a life that we can create and thrive with, as opposed to spending our time trying to figure out how to manage pain, how to simply move off the couch without pain, or whatever that may be. And I mean, ultimately, we want to be able to play the sports, lift our kids, do all the things that we want without pain. And with what block therapy and this fitness program does, it will give you those steps that you need to follow to start from that right place. And I mean, even if you've been doing sports or whatever for years, the block breaks down and then we rebuild. It's a tearing down and a rebuilding, a tearing down and a rebuilding. And somebody even posted in our group the other day about after doing part of our cellulite program, change happened, but it made their tissue temporarily look more saggy. And that's because we have to go through a process of breaking down before we can build back up. You know, if you're buying an old shack and you want to build something, you got to tear that shack down first. And when we're melting through those adhesions, we have to create that release from the bone and then oxygenate and reintegrate. And again, with your program, that's what people are going to be doing.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. And it's been a long time coming, especially for those who have been in the community or in the university for a while, but it just hasn't necessarily been a priority when there's been so many other things that we've had to take care of before we can get this up and rolling. So yeah, it's going to be pretty much how this will look, the program, because even if you've been doing block therapy for years and years and years, or even if you're brand new to block therapy, the first phase is going to be composed of 24 exercises or movements, and there's both a beginner and an advanced. And what I'm going to have you do is follow the video that I've put up, just to understand what this exercise is, what we're doing, understanding the breathing tempos. I've created a slightly modified version of my own breathing tempo formula that I've tried to make as simple as possible for you guys to understand. And all it's doing is making your breath your guide rather than using seconds as your tempo. And in pretty well any fitness or bodybuilding program, it's going to be based on seconds, but seconds is more of like a universal time. It's a universal way of counting, when our breath is unique to each individual. So everybody's breath is going to be different and slightly different. So it's really important to understand that you have to respect your body's limits rather than somebody telling you how many seconds you should be doing a certain repetition or how long you should be holding an exercise. So that's like one of the first things I want people to understand when they're starting this program is you're in control of your breath, and that's going to determine the duration of the time of the repetition and how long you're going to be in that exercise for. And then, so once they've gone through that initial video, they're going to test it out for themselves, see if there's any weakness, cramping. Maybe they're feeling pretty good in that area. And some people, there's going to be exercises that are going to be simple. Some are going to be very challenging, but every exercise I've put in there, I can make as easy or as challenging as I want. And we're not in the gym. So that's what's really cool about this. Once you've gone through that initial video, then there's going to be a suggested block therapy class for you to follow. And it's going to be 30 minutes long. And that's going to help release and decompress and improve blood and oxygen flow to that area that we're going to be strengthening. Once you've done that 30-minute class, then you're going to be revisiting the video. You'll probably need to rewatch it. And then I have a workout for you below. And there's both going to be a beginner and an advanced workout. And what I ended up doing, because I didn't know if I wanted to just have people go through some of the exercises to learn it, then have a bunch of workouts, I've actually built it so every single day builds off of each other. So day one's going to be one exercise because you don't know any other exercises yet. And then day two, there's going to be two exercises. Three, there's going to be three. But that doesn't mean once we hit the 24th exercise, you're going to be doing 24 exercises at once. That's ridiculous. But I'll be picking and choosing to mix it up and make it more fun for what workout you're going to be doing in that moment. And I also haven't structured it so that it's actually day one, day two, day three, day four, day five, because that's great for and ideal for like a block therapy program alone. But some people can get really frustrated if certain exercises aren't working for them, or if it's too intense, or this one hurts my back a little bit more, I need to stay here and work on this, then stay there and work on it. So I don't want you to just jump through it in 24 days necessarily. So you're going to be in control of how fast you want to gauge it. If you can go through it in 24 days, no problem. And that's going to be the structure of it. So I recommend everybody goes through the beginner piece first. Once you've completed those 24, what I've done in each video, I've made like a little step so that you can skip ahead of the video to the advanced piece, and then you can follow the whole advanced section after. And it gets pretty challenging, very respectfully though, to your body. So anything we're doing, it's all about you respecting your limits, you being in control, and you're not going to be injured if you're listening to what I'm instructing. And even the exercises I'm doing, it's going to be very challenging to get injured. And hey, if you do get injured, guess what? You can fix yourself with the block. That's the best part with it, because I've injured myself countless times in the gym, especially when I was around like 18, 19, 20 years old, and even younger than that. And then those consequences have been still manipulating and pulling me out of alignment at times, because those adhesions are powerful. Especially like, that's why I never want to tell someone to go to the gym if they haven't blocked first, because it literally doesn't make any sense. If you are really pulled and compressed and you have a major adhesion in your psoas or in your ankle, which I do, and then you're squatting, the more you're going to be doing and repeating that exercise, the more it's going to be pulling you more powerfully in that spiral, in that negative alignment. And then you're just going to be playing tug of war your whole life, trying to fix the issue, not fix the issue, fix the issue. And that's with the block. If you don't have the block, then it's a bit of a recipe for disaster. And I don't want this to sound depressing for people who are currently in the gym, because everything is fixable. That's what's amazing with block therapy in the body, is we believe that every cell has the capability to go back to its original state if we give the body what it needs. And that's releasing the fascia, oxygenating the body, and then bringing the body and training the body in its correct alignment.
Exactly. And I mean, if you think about it, when you go to the gym, one of the goals is to create symmetry in how you look. So the reality is, though, we're not starting from that place of symmetry. So then if you see this asymmetry and then you work to create what looks symmetrical on the outside, your insides are a twisted disaster. And it's so interesting, because when we're doing assessments, I see it all the time when somebody, we start with a photo and then we give a protocol. And then often by the time they finish that first program, whatever it may be, when you get that after photo, they can appear more twisted because they have melted through the shell. And now those deeper adhesions are coming to the surface and they're creating more of a twist. So again, just to really reinforce the need to bring the body into symmetry before we build. And of course, again, we're all at whatever age we are and whatever activities we've done to accumulate or to bring our body to this point in life at this time. With the block, we go through those layers and we rebuild. So it's a tearing down and a rebuilding, and a tearing down and a rebuilding, and it's a lifestyle. And I love the fact that you mentioned that you are teaching them to respect their own breathing patterns, because ATP it uses oxygen to create energy in the cells. So when we are breathing properly through the work, as opposed to how many do breathing shallow, breathing through the muscles of the upper chest, or even holding their breath to create a movement, you are not giving the ATP, those little energy machines inside the cells, what they need to give you energy. So the breath is such a key component, and to be able to find a way to use your own breathing tempo in your work, and then to work over time to lengthen that breathing tempo, is going to provide so much more efficient results, as well as decrease the lactic acid buildup and the aftermath of the workouts, as you've already experienced in your own personal self.
Big time, big time. Oh, the lactic acid buildup can get pretty intense at times, but when there's flow in the body, it's hard for the lactic acid to build up nearly as much. So, and the suggested classes that I have in there are suggested classes. So if you've been doing block for a long time and you start to understand your body a little bit more, then you can of course do the class that you want. And ultimately I want you to be able to understand and be more consciously aware of your body throughout this program, because there might even be some lessons where I'm like, hey, there's no suggested class, but get into this exercise, see what you're feeling, see what's restricting you. Is it your ankle? Is it your hip? Is it your diaphragm? Is it your shoulder blade? And then work a class there and then come back and revisit. Because I'm going to be giving you a structure for sure, probably the first 12 days or so. But then I'm going to be throwing in some days where it's like, okay, test out your body, see how you're feeling, and then block what you feel is necessary for you to block in the moment now. So yeah, that's going to be really cool as well. And this is just the beginning. That's what's so cool. We've been talking, Deanna, about like the future of what we can do with this. And there's an infinite amount of stuff we can put in the membership with block therapy, with creating like these fitness flows we were talking about, which is going to be coming. I'm not sure when, but it will be coming probably within the year or so. And then like a rehab program, we want to be able to put together a really cool, where Deanna can look at it from more of the fascia perspective, where she can see everything with her eyes, and then me as being able to strengthen certain areas. So if you have like frozen shoulder, for example, if you want to take this to another level, it's going to be really cool where Deanna can say, okay, typically for somebody with frozen shoulder, we need to work in these areas. Then I'm going to say, people who have frozen shoulders or have a lot of pain in their shoulder, it's really important to strengthen this action, which can be the serratus, for example, to really help stabilize the shoulder blade. So it's going to be super cool what we're going to be able to do together to make some kick-ass programs and sections in the membership. And who knows where this is really going to go. Jen and I don't really like having a set in stone plan, because that can take a lot of the fun out of the equation. And we like to be able to go with the flow a lot of the time and see how people respond to this and be able to figure out what is the best thing to put in at the right time. So that's why we're starting with this phase 1, rebuilding your postural foundation. So you can understand how to move correctly, pick things up and down correctly, work out correctly, and then we can start exploring and having a little bit more fun.
Exactly. And I mean, as you mentioned, the opportunities are pretty much limitless. And there is such a spectrum from starting with the person that really can't move to the other end of the spectrum, to creating people who have the abilities that they don't even realize are possible. And that's really the exciting part, I think, when you and I have had those dream moments, is creating a world of, I don't know if we want to call them superhumans in a sense, but kind of, where we have that ability to be stronger, to heal faster, to lift more, to run farther, all the things that we want to do, but to do it in a way that continues to improve our health, as opposed to breaking it down like Quinn. So it's awesome, because right now you've started golfing. And I remember my dad, your grandpa, he was a really great golfer, and now you're golfing in the same course, and he would be so proud of you, by the way. But I remember when he hit a point when no longer was his body working for him, and the game of golf became really hard and irritating to the point where he finally let it go. Because there's no joy in a game when you were playing at a certain level and then suddenly your body simply won't do what it needs to do. And it doesn't matter how expensive the clubs are or whatever. It matters what's going on here and how you use the tool, your body, to perform those actions. So to be able to give people the gift of being able to find what their passions are and to be able to support them lifelong, to be able to do that is partly what we want to do. So that we don't just get to that point where it's like, oh, you know, you're in your 50s and 60s, so you're going to start declining. Like, we don't want people to decline. We want people to continue to thrive and age and become better with age. I mean, that's really what this is all about. Who knows how long we can actually live if we don't let compression take us over. And really, compression with gravity is what causes pain, aging, disease, and ultimately death. So with block, we are decompressing. And with strengthening the body properly and working our cells and keeping them fed and clean lifelong, again, we're kind of at the forefront of let's see what happens. And let's go as far as we can with this, and let's get as many people on the planet to a point where we've given them the tools that they need to drive their body in the most respectful, efficient, awesome way, so that they can bring their gifts to the world. We need that. We need people to be able to feel really at peace and content and excited about creating a new world. And it's time, because this world, we're coming to the end of the way that we've been living. I think it's pretty obvious. Like, this pandemic has, brought a lot to the surface, that what we've done up until now is no longer working. And now we have a whole bunch of things to figure out. And there's going to be a lot of new innovations and ideas coming forward that are going to help us navigate a new reality. And I see that we're part of that, and how we can teach people how to treat and respect their own bodies, and how to, like, I love that for the first 12 days, you're giving them direction, but then you're teaching them to become intuitive with what they need. And that's the point. It's awesome to go to somebody and have them say what you need, but it's even more awesome to say, I know what I need, and I have the tool, and I have the understanding how to give my body what it needs to heal, to thrive, to do all the things that I want to do, because it's your body. Mm-hmm. And when we learn to listen to what the cells are saying, the cells are going to give you exactly the information that they need in order for you to pay attention. But we haven't learned the language of the cells. And that's, again, what block does, is it connects you to those deeper cells than what we're consciously aware. And you start listening to what they're saying to you. And it's not like they're saying, oh, Deanna, I need you to stop eating meat because you haven't gone to the bathroom in a week. But it's kind of like that. It's like, over time, you're like, oh, okay, whenever I'm eating meat, I don't seem to flow as well. So maybe I shouldn't be doing that. It's a process of listening, adapting, trying things. Sometimes we try the wrong things, mm-hmm. but we can always reset. And then we can go and we can try those right things. And I mean, that's really what you've done with this whole fitness program. You had an intention years ago, but then as you grew and developed and were working with this community, you realized there was a different starting point. And I'm really glad it's taken until now, because I think what you have now done is exactly what people need as a starting point, so that as you continue to add and you start attracting more people that are people, maybe bodybuilders or whatever that is, they're going to be coming at this from that right foundation. And then we can see people being on those stages and healthy, as opposed to being on those stages and other people might see them and think that they're healthy, but I see them and I'm like, oh, I know what their cells are doing, and I see those veins popping out, and compression and ballooning is not a healthy thing. So to be able to change the game in what fitness and health looks like as a combination is what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, totally. Me too. I'm really excited to see people's results from this too. And there's going to be moments of, and this is just a guarantee, I think, of frustration going through pretty well any program, of some challenges. Some are going to be simple, but that's kind of the point, isn't it? Like, you don't want everything to be easy. You don't want to be following it. It's not like block therapy. Sure, it's an easy concept because you're laying on the block and you're instructed to breathe, but there's still pain in the equation. So you have to be able to understand pain and gauge pain and know what it's actually doing for you. Similar to training, like there's going to be times where there's going to be difficult exercises for you to do. Maybe for Joe over here, it's going to be very simple, but for Bob, it's going to be very challenging, and they can go both ways. So it's just sticking with it and working on your weaknesses, because so many people want to work on their strengths in the gym because they're fun, they're easy. It's like, oh, I can bench press 300 pounds. Oh, I'm going to just keep on bench pressing. But what about the rest of your body? Like, why aren't you working on everything else? And again, that's from a bodybuilding perspective, but even just touching into the whole trial and error piece too. It's figuring out, I love how you said that, it's figuring out where your body is right now. And what I mean by this is, there's been times where I've lifted very heavyweight, I've lifted very lightweight with more repetitions and slower, and you try to find what feels the best for you and for your body. And I'm lifting a lot lighter now, more controlled, using my breath as my guide, and I feel absolutely incredible. I remember saying that deadlifts were one of the worst things you can do. Now I'm starting to love deadlifts because I'm actually doing them correctly, and I'm not lifting them as heavy as I possibly can. I'm actually doing it from a postural perspective, because you're training the body in that exercise actually in a very good, correct postural alignment. And I have made some modifications to help it, to help train the body in more of that anatomical alignment. But that's just an example. So yeah, you can be anywhere in your life right now. You can be golfing and then you start noticing improvements in your golf game. It's so interesting because when I first started jiu-jitsu, my body got really compressed because it was something that I wasn't used to. And I was able to fix that. And then I remember I went to Arizona and I was golfing. The first golf game I had, I couldn't even swing. Like, my range of motion was completely off. So I blocked for about an hour and a half before our next golf game. And I ended up, I think, beating everybody in that golf round because I was able to get my range of motion back. It's all range of motion from my perspective, at least. And this is the best golf season I've ever played. I've gotten some lucky rounds in there too, but yeah, it's, I think that's the thing. It's for everyone. And I just want people to understand that. And it's going to be a journey of you going through this and seeing how it's going to improve whatever you're currently doing, because we don't want you to stop what you're doing. We don't want, if you're absolutely loving something, or if you're a professional athlete in tennis, in golf, in hockey, in rugby, in football, we don't want to say stop. We want to say, figure out how to decompress, align the body so that you can actually perform that sport from the healthiest perspective, and still knowing how to decompress the body and give the cells what they need. Because sports, like repetitive sports in one direction, is going to be torquing your body more out of alignment. But in this program, we work on rotation, we work on a lot of things, and we want to create that symmetry in the body. So yeah.
And it is all about range of motion. When I was going through the yoga teacher training, the very first thing that they say is like, you don't strengthen first, you have to release first. Because again, if I have a shoulder that can only go in this range, do I want to lift and lift and lift and get tighter and tighter and tighter until eventually I've got this much range? No, I want to first create this kind of movement and then strengthen from that place of movement. And obviously it's a journey between here, and we don't just go here first. We release and we strengthen. We release and we strengthen. We release and we strengthen. So we keep taking steps. And it's kind of like how, people in our community that have been blocking, most often they find they get taller, because over time we get shorter and wider as we age. Gravity compresses and we balloon. That's why we seem to have a harder time losing weight as we get older, because it's not about fat, it's about compression and ballooning and the resultant toxification. So if I'm getting that spare tire around my belly, it's not because I have more fat in there suddenly, it's because I'm compressing in through the rib cage, and then it has to go somewhere. So when we are going through this process of rebuilding the body, we release and then we build in alignment. So we pull that foundation that's been pulled away and we start bringing it closer, 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 until we are like that really strong, solid tree growing in alignment. And then we flourish up at the top, which is what we want to do. Where if you look at so many people, their foundation is way off. Working with these people with scoliosis, I mean, it's the foundation that's the problem. It's not the spine. I mean, the spine is a problem, but it's a result. It's the issue site from the pain, or from the cause site, which is that foundation. So again, I mean, it really is simple in concept. There's 3 parts to block therapy. Doing the block creates that space. It takes away the old pattern of what we've been in to create a possibility for a new pattern. With the breath, we inflate those cells that we've suddenly opened that space to. We melt through something, now we're breathing diaphragmatically, and we're getting those cells that haven't been fed to start absorbing that oxygen, and they start waking up and they start thriving. But from there, and this is where this program comes in, because this is the most challenging piece of block therapy, is to own that new space. Because we can block and breathe, but if we go back to our pattern, and believe me, if you're not conscious, gravity is going to pull you back into that pattern, because you've created that pattern over a lifetime. you're going to fall back into that pattern. So we want to make it so that we keep taking a step up, another step, another step. We release, we inflate, we maintain. We release, we inflate, we maintain. And then we actually take steps to a whole new body, a transformation within ourselves. And that is not only seen on the outside, it's also changing on the inside. Our organs are working better. Our cells are fed and clean. And as long as your cells are fed and clean, ultimately, there's no reason that we should go through pain, aging, disease. At some point, we'll die, but we can die healthy. We don't have to go through a process of suffering, degenerating until we die. We want to live a healthy, awesome life until it's over, so that we don't have to go through that suffering. And I mean, we all suffer, we learn through suffering, but if we can find ways of going through life to minimize the suffering or to learn different approaches to handle that suffering, then it's just a better quality of life. And really, that's what we're here to do. It's to live a quality life. And again, I feel so blessed that we've chosen to be here at this time in human history, because we are given an opportunity to create a new world. And I do believe that we are very much in the forefront of doing that, because when we teach people how to have peace within, better choices are made. And when better choices are made from each one of us, that shows in how we treat each other, the planet, the animals, everything. And that's what we want.
Totally. 100%. And yeah, it starts with each individual. That's where it all starts from, because we've talked about this. I'm like, how is this really going to unfold if it took the worst turn? But I'm like, you can't think that way. You have to think of the way that it all comes down to the individual, and just making that individual as healthy as they can. And then they can start making the choices that they need. And no matter what's going around in the world, from like a virus perspective or from an unhealthy perspective, if the food isn't the same, if the water supply, as long as we're taking care of ourselves the best way we can, we're going to be the healthiest versions of ourselves. And that's why we always talk about oxygen. It's the number one nutrient our body needs. It's not water or the macronutrients or the micronutrients that, of course we need that, but oxygen is always number one. And when you're so compressed, you can't absorb nearly as much oxygen. When your diaphragm's trapped, you can't even activate the pump to pull in oxygen. So that's another like really interesting concept, is people talk so much about how much water they should take, what vitamins they should take, what food they should be eating. And that's very important, but they never talk about the oxygen first. And that should always be the first thing that people should consider. And the more adhesions you can release in your body, the more space you can create in your body, the more oxygen you're going to be receiving into your cells, the more you're going to be able to rid toxins and waste out of your body. So that's another really important key factor. And then once you've understood that, yes, absolutely, you have to start taking into consideration what kind of food is best for your body. And it's different for everyone. So I don't like talking about that too much, but I'm sure we'll talk about that more in the future. But right now, I just want people to understand their body, oxygenate their body, release their body, strengthen their body in correct alignment. And then they're going to already start feeling so much different, so much better.
And regarding the food, I think that's really what it comes down to when you start to do this work. Because yes, as you mentioned, I don't like talking about the food discussion either, because there's so many different mindsets around it. There's so many different body types. What works for you might not work for me, and vice versa. So for us to say, this is what people should be eating, I don't agree with that at all. What we should be doing is listening to our body, eat something, see how it feels, and then that's how we should be making our decisions on what is healthy for us. If it doesn't feel good, no matter if somebody says this is the healthiest food on the planet, it might not be healthy for you. So it's all about listening to how we feel. And so many times I've had people say, well, I feel great, but then the doctor told me I had this and now I'm worried. And it's like, feeling great is the key, and again, when we can teach people to become their own healthcare advocate, it doesn't mean we don't need doctors and we don't need other professionals to give us guidance at times along the way. But when we learn to listen to ourselves, there's so much that we can do to keep ourselves healthy lifelong, simply by paying attention to how we feel, cause and effect. I eat this, I feel crappy. Okay, well, don't eat it anymore. You know, it really is that simple. And I mean, oftentimes it can take more than a day or two, so it can get a little discombobulated along the way. However, when you block, you start to listen, you start to hear what your cells are saying, and it is an intuitive, beautiful process that just simply occurs from the doing of it. And
Totally.
if we can say anything to people, just start, because you will start for whatever reason you start for. And then the majority of people, they stick around and they stay and they turn this into a lifestyle, because the gains never end. If you continue the practice, the gifts continue.
Totally. 100%. And you get more in tune with your body. You get more intelligent, more wise with your body. And yeah, like you just get, it's funny when we say you just get smarter, but it's true in a sense, because, well, definitely with your body, especially if you're listening and not ignoring your body. And that can take some time, but yeah. And getting into the starter package is the best way, because the fitness program isn't an external program. It's built within the membership. So the prerequisite is the starter program. I want everybody to go through that 9-day full body fascia program first. And then every other lesson, there's going to be a block therapy class in there with that exercise. So you're always going to be blocking. You never want to slow down or stop on that. That is the key. That's what's going to keep you healthy. That's what's going to keep you oxygenated. So yeah.
Well, Quinn, I am so extremely excited for the community to dive in, and I'm super excited to see the comments in our community, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of people asking questions about what's going on. And thank you so much for your dedication to, well, everything, but I mean to this process, because I am so excited to see the development of this and to see people becoming really strong and healthy and excited about being able to continue whatever sports or activities that they love to do. And I just love you so much. So if there's any last words you want to share, I'm all done here. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'll pass it to you.
Just last words is, understand that starting anything new, there's going to be a learning process, if that's doing block therapy or starting the fitness program. And what I mean by that is just take your time with it. Don't get too frustrated. Follow every step one at a time, because reading the workouts is going to be a little bit of a learning curve. Understanding the breathing tempo is a little bit of a learning curve. Everything's a bit of a learning curve, but don't get frustrated and just quit. Of course, you can always ask me questions, because I want to guide you guys through this process. And if I feel that there's going to be some changes in the program, we can always make those changes as well to keep making it better and better and better over time. But it will just continually be growing, and it's going to be super fun. And that's pretty well everything. So no matter where you are right now, even if you're young, you can do this. Even if you're 10 years old, you can do this. Even if you're 80 years old, you can still do this, because we all need to be able to be strong inner foundations and throughout daily life and any activity we want to do. So don't get discouraged where you are. Understand there is hope. There is a process to getting your body to where it needs to be. And that's what Dan and I have worked so hard to put together for you guys. So that is everything. Do you know what? Before we end, because I'm usually the moderator, let's just look at let's see if there's any questions, because I haven't been able to really look because I want it to be more. Okay, there's a lot of questions here. I'll read more of the questions, not the comments as much. Will we have to do the block for life or for maintenance? Well, I would always say for life, because you never want to stop doing something that you're only going to gain more benefits from. Some people might use it when they just have chronic pain, but when you start understanding the body and the fascia system, there's no reason to stop, especially when you're noticing the results and you're just feeling better. Because even if we release and you fix an issue, there's still forces that come at the body every single day. Stress is going to hit you. You might get injured. Whatever happens, you need to be able to decompress and reconnect to the breath. It's like anything. Like if you're wanting, let's say block therapy didn't exist, but you wanted to go to the gym and look a certain way, you're still going to have to be dedicated to going to the gym. It's not like you're going to work out for a month, look a certain way, or work out for a year, look a certain way and say, hey, I did it, I'm done. It's a lifelong practice. This is a lifestyle. And that's what I love so much about it, because there's no end goal to it.
And gravity is going to constantly be pulling you down. So if you don't block, those adhesions are going to add up. And yeah, that's a good answer there.
My name is, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, and I'm sorry if I'm not, Jean Loic. 10 years old, excited for this program. I'm rooting for you, Quinn. That was from Kat Sutcliffe. So thank you so much. You're going to love it. You can absolutely go through this program, and I'm super excited to see your results. Which is amazing. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'm so excited for all of you to go through this. And I think that's everything. So this is going to be up on the YouTube channel. If you are watching this on the YouTube channel, make sure you like and subscribe. If you have any questions, just comment below and we will answer those as well. And we are going to be live same time, same place next week at 10.
14th, not next week.
We are skipping that week. Okay.
This week, the 14th.
I'm glad you confirmed that. Okay, so the 14th, we're going to be going back to me being more of the moderator there, and then we're going to have more guests coming on. But this has been so much fun to be able to talk about the journey of block therapy, what Deanna and I have been through, where we are now, and launching the Block for Fitness program. So that's everything. Love you, Deanna. Thank you for everything.
Community. Bye, everyone.
We'll see you guys in a couple weeks.